And when stars are in light, the weeper, we would know.
Hey, we are live. See, Elissa, I told you, it just it just comes on real fast. Like
I kept looking around.
Coming in hot. Like it's like you think it's not going to be there, and then it's there.
Magic.
And then it's awkward. No one knows how to get started and what's going on. Welcome everyone to the Improved Sales Performance live cast. Excited to be here again this week with another just absolute amazing guest. We are broadcasting live on LinkedIn, and we're also live casting on YouTube. And so if you're following us on YouTube, please like, share, subscribe, click the little bell so that you'll get alerted when we're doing that. But I've shared with people before, we're really going for more and more YouTube subscribers. So to the extent that you'll subscribe if you like what you see, and that you'll share it with your friends, it means an awful lot. If you are watching us live, whether it's on LinkedIn or YouTube, we do look at questions that are coming in, and I try to get to those. But why don't you go ahead and comment right now? And I think one of our favorite things to do is ask, what is the weather like where you are? I'll tell you, I'm in Dallas. Last night we had terrific storms. There's a typical North Texas March storm that came through. It was amazing, but today the weather is great. So wherever you are, let us know. And I see some people are excited that you're on the show today. So we'll jump in. Let me make a quick introduction, and I apologize. I need to pull it up. Sometimes when you know people, you're not as prepared.
Well, in the interim, I will tell you that I'm in Charleston, South Carolina, and there is a fog of yellow over everything. So everything is starting to bloom, and we've had no rain, but it's beautiful. It's such a nice time of year if you can get past the sneezing and the yellow film.
That's exactly right. I mean, that is the time. I will tell you, usually the whole month of May, I spend sneezing. Like it just, so I totally get that. All right, so let me just read Elissa's bio because it's really terrific. And I tried to chop it up, but it's just not worth it. So Elissa is the founder and CEO of a company called Ballyhoo Social, one of the nation's first and most innovative social media agencies. And like, if I went no further than that, that's like the coolest thing in the world, because people think of social media today, and we'll talk a little bit about this, and a lot of people are comfortable with social media and they've kind of learned how to use it. I mean, heck, we're using it right now in a way that 10 years ago no one would have thought was possible. But you were right there at the very beginning, and we'll talk, that'll come up in today's conversation. You were at Ballyhoo, you were the Florida's fastest growing social media agency. Ballyhoo Social focuses on creating social solutions and inspiring authentic connections with so many national clients. And the innovative work and drive of this company is a direct reflection of yours as the founder. We're delighted to have you here today. I'm excited to jump into these questions. So I'm just going to go ahead and get started.
I'm ready.
All right. And as always, I write out my questions. We are not winging this. This is too important. So what are some of the common obstacles that stand in the way of a successful sales culture? I mean, I would venture to say that nobody intends to have a bad sales culture. Nobody has as their goal, we're going to have a bad sales culture. But I am interested from your point of view, what are some of the obstacles that tend to get in the way?
I want to piggyback on what you said. I don't think that people have the intention of having a bad sales culture. And I truly believe that 99.9% of employees want to do a good job. I think that people want to feel like they are successful in doing a good job. The disconnect comes from management expectations. I think when you look at culture, you have got to look at the organization as a whole first. And one of the biggest challenges I see in companies is that the mission and the vision from the top down is not clearly articulated. Everyone's not on the same page about why we're doing what we're doing. The level of transparency in organizations, the ones that are super successful, especially in sales, the more transparent you are and clear on the expectations of the organization, the better everyone's on the same page. And I think that's critical. I also think that one of the challenges in a sales organization, and in fairness, I think every company is a sales company first.
Yeah.
I mean, our objective, number one, is to build revenue so that everyone can get paid and have a job. So I think sales is the most important in every organization. But you look at across some organizations where sales is put in the corner, put down, they're not supported, they're not funded properly, they're not trained properly. And the organization sometimes is a product focused and not sales focused organization. And I think that all of those factors really, really get in the way of creating a culture that is sales first, and but also the right kind of salespeople.
Yeah, there's one of the things you brought up is, and I agree with you that I think people want a good sales culture. I think that most people try real hard, right? I think that's kind of table stakes that they're in there. But I think you're right. People sometimes just don't know what's expected of them, right? They just don't. I remember I watched that. I can't remember the name of it. That documentary on Bill Belichick and Nick Saban on HBO that HBO ran. I believe it was HBO. And they both, in their own separate way, said one of the very first things you have to do is make sure that people know what their job is, right? You can't be very good at your job if you don't know what your job is.
It's true. I think about kind of the lack of goals or clear objectives, these nebulous, everyone running in different directions. The lack of clarity will always, in my opinion, and I don't use that word a lot, but it will always equal no or low results because people don't know what direction to point.
Yeah.
And that's a leadership challenge / opportunity, I think.
Yeah, I think it's a big opportunity. All right, so let's get into a little bit of what people can do. So for the managers that are watching this right now, or the managers that will watch this in the days to follow, as I know a lot of people watch the replay, what are a few things they could be doing in order to drive performance, and how often do they do whatever you're going to recommend? Be sure to share with us your thoughts on how often. Is this a daily ritual, a weekly ritual, quarterly, annually? What do you think they could be doing?
So first of all, I think that you'll agree that there's no one size fits all. So every sales manager will have a talent and skill set, and every salesperson will have a unique talent and skill set. And so I think goal number one is to make sure that you understand the talent that you have and you understand what their strengths and weaknesses are. I think that creating clear goals and objectives for each individual is critical. And I think that sometimes it takes the manager a little bit of time to communicate that to the salesperson, sales executive in a way that they can clearly understand. I think some people also need it broken down. So let's say your budget's $1 million a year. For some people, that could be incredibly overwhelming. And so breaking it out into $1 million a year is $250,000 a quarter, $225,000 a quarter. And then that's this many calls. And so breaking it down into consumable numbers and then translating that into what a commission means can be incredibly helpful for certain people. So, you eat the elephant one bite at a time. I think that one of the biggest things, challenges, opportunities I see in organizations is that managers can't manage salespeople if they're doing 15 to 20 other things besides managing staff. And a lot of times, really great sales managers are pulled into every department meeting, and they're on the committee to decide what color the sweatshirts need to be next year for a trade show, when that's not really their objective. So I think executive management can do a great job of making sure that your managers are managing. And then this is going to be a super unpopular opinion, but I think you've got to look at your sales organization and the bottom 20 you got to get rid of. You have to fire people that aren't performing, because the number one job of a salesperson is to sell. And if they're not selling and they can't be trained up, they got to get out.
Yeah, a couple of things. There's a former mentor of mine. He's passed away now, but he used to say, and this sounds harsh, and it is. The first time you hear it, it does sound harsh, but it's not. He said you should honor your heroes, carry your wounded, and shoot your stragglers. And the first time you hear that, it's like a little bit of whoa. What do you mean? But if you think about it, right? I mean, we're in a performance business, and that kind of leads me to my next question, and I'm going to ask it a couple of different ways. Revenue performance is super important. I think we all know that. I think everyone agrees with that. At least anyone watching this is going to be of that mindset. Yet so many businesses struggle with really having a growth mindset. They end up having flat revenue year after year after year. I mean, maybe they go up a few percentages or they stay flat, but they're not seeing double-digit growth there. And I think the question for you is, what can a business owner do or a sales leader do to really get the needle moving in the direction of growth, not just maintain, but grow?
So as well as I do, again, that maintaining is not growing. Maintaining is actually the what I call in accounting, it's the parentheses of a business. If you just maintain, you will be out of business, period. Because attrition happens, pandemics happen, people leave, markets change drastically. So if you are staying the course, you are setting yourself up for colossal failure that may be a slow burn. So to not have a growth mindset isn't an option. So the question is, how do you have a growth mindset? And I think that one of the cornerstones in a growth mindset is that you have to make sure that your best salespeople are selling. And what I see so many times is the top performers, the top 20% of a sales organization, come into an organization, they know how to sell, they're successful, and they build their book or expand a book over the course of a year or 2 years. And then sometimes at that 2-year point, all they're doing is account management. They're not selling anymore. And so then you have people that aren't as successful selling, going out and beating the pavement, doing new business development, that aren't as talented as your most talented, because they're focused on not doing what salespeople should be doing, which is constantly selling. And so setting up a structure so that you're making sure that 80% of your salespeople's time is actually done selling, not account management. And I think that's the most critical factor to growing is to keep people filling the funnel and growing the business.
Yeah, we have a client that I have a lot of respect for, and this person is the sales leader of a large organization. And they're like the head of sales, and they were talking to a sales manager in a particular city, and they said to that sales leader, "Tell me, who are your best salespeople?" And the sales leader quickly said, "Well, my top two revenue producers are this person and this person." And the head of sales said, "No, why don't you do it a different way? Why don't you show me who are your best salespeople with this as the definition? Brought in the most new business in the last 12 months." And those two people that he had said were the top revenue producers were near the bottom of the list for the exact reason you just said. And he even said, these two are really, really good. They're just so busy with the book of business that they have. They don't have time. And it's like, oh man, your very best people don't have time to sell.
And that's an organizational problem. I think you see it in so many organizations and businesses. And I also think that affects culture. To go back to the culture question, if you have people that are true new business development people, which was always my very, very, very favorite thing to do in sales. I always loved bringing in new business. One, because it was more commission and I'm motivated by that. But two, because it was really exciting to see a solution provided to like that was really delightful to me. So I always wanted to develop business constantly. When you have an organization where the top two people are revenue generators have a big fat list, and then you have people that are in BD that are constantly bringing in new business, but the people that are celebrated the most are really not, in my opinion, growing the business. They're growing their book of business, and I don't think it's the same thing. I think that the ones at the bottom are the ones you lose, and those are the ones you need to keep or make sure you're nurturing and training up.
Yeah, we were talking about earlier today, we were having a CSS consultant meeting. We were talking a little bit about the difference between a growth mindset and a maintain mindset. And even though some companies say they have a growth mindset, when you look at the way they're structured, when you look at the way they're compensating, the structure and the compensation don't support a growth mindset, even though the words do.
Right. And it's a fear, it's almost a fear-based, there's a fear, I think, and I think that this is an opportunity for a training perspective for a manager. I think some managers need to be trained on how to create a system so that your effective account managers, who are really your salespeople, have the ability to transition that book of business off in a way that the client feels super served, which is what everybody wants, I think. And because you want your clients to be happy, but also that, again, you're nurturing that growth mindset, the true growth mindset. And I think there's a little bit of fear. I don't think managers really understand always how to do that.
I think you're right. All right, let's switch subjects. And I want to go to something that is in your wheelhouse, social media. As a social media pioneer, right? Expert, pioneer, how should sales organizations use social media to help them drive revenue?
Okay, I'm going to tell you how you should not do it. And this is wonderful because this is like my soapbox. The most frustrating thing in the world to me as an executive, somebody that ran businesses, that worked with C-suite, it is incredibly frustrating when people get on a platform like LinkedIn and they connect with me. And I feel like this individual
I know what you're going to say. I hate this.
And they connect with me, and the first piece of communication they send to me in a message is a canned Salesforce or HubSpot pitch that has zero to do with my business, and they are just checking a box. And so what that tells me, number one, is that you don't want to have a meaningful connection with me. So I'm insulted right away. Number two, I feel like they're lazy, and that's annoying. But number three, it tells me something about the organization. There are so many organizations that are so focused on the CRM and the input in the CRM and tracking the CRM, and they're not always tracking the results. And I would guess that a lot of people hate that too. I mean, you mentioned you don't like it, but if you are getting that type of communication, it's insulting and it's lazy. So I think that that's the worst way to use social media. I think the best way to use social media is how, we used to have to go to the library or pull magazines or use some of, hire companies to come in and give us insights into different industries. I think that you research the contact, you research the industry, you read all of the updates in the industry. If you're doing a vertical business play where you say, I just want to work with HVAC businesses, or I just want to work with automotive dealers, and you're using social media to really tag keywords to look at trends, opportunities, and businesses, because the connection message that would come to me to say, I noticed that there is a tremendous amount of growth and change going on with XYZ business, and 5 out of 6 executives I've talked to have had this particular business problem. I would like to talk to you about how we might have a solution that will solve that problem for you, because every executive in the world has something, or 1 or 2 or 3 things that are keeping them up at night. And if you can solve that business problem by being educated, thoughtful, mindful, and paying attention, you're 15 steps ahead. And there's so much information now. There's no excuse for that. So that's how to use social. Pay attention, watch what people like. You can learn so much about someone if you follow them on Twitter, if you can connect with them on Facebook. You can see where they went to school. You can see how many kids they have. You can see where they live. I mean, there's so much information, and personalizing that sale is critical. And I think that wins. I think that builds trust, and that's, in my mind, the cornerstone of good sales.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the personalization and the authenticity is super important. It does drive me crazy when someone connects and then immediately, like, it is sometimes like the moment you hit accept,
it's horrible.
You get the pitch, and it's like, dude, slow down. Like,
just hang on a second. We just started dating.
Like, pretend like you're looking at my stuff before you just ask me a question like that. You don't know me. Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. I think that, especially as connected as we are now, but because of COVID and because we're working from home, I think people really are more disconnected than they've ever been, even though we can see each other. And it doesn't feel good to be sold that way. And I think that there are so many salespeople that, for whatever reason, do it that way. Maybe they were trained that way. Maybe they were told they had to get a certain amount of leads or fill the funnel of the CRM, but that's bad business. And I think that if I could make any change in the world, it would be that one. Please stop.
Yeah. How about, let's talk about the difference between good and great. So Jim Collins famously wrote the book, Good to Great. Everyone loves that book. It's awesome. The enemy of great is good, right? Because you're good, you're established. When you're not very good, going from not very good to great is sometimes a lot easier, because you identify that you have a problem and you're like, I got to fix this when I want to go here. I want to talk about the difference that separates a great sales organization from a good one. And we could probably spend all day talking about this. So pick 1 or 2, pick an area that you think this is really a differentiator. What do the great ones do that the good ones don't do so well?
So Jim Collins said this in the book, and it has always really resonated with me. People need to be at the right seat on the bus, right? We need to have the right people in the right roles, and we have to follow them along their journey. If I'm in the right role today, I may not be the right person for that role, because 1, the role may have evolved and changed. And so my skill set or my capability isn't where it needs to be. So can I be coached up or mentored up or trained up to fit the current need of the business? I think that one of the things I've learned in social media, because when I started Ballyhoo, I had to explain to people what Facebook was, because they had just transitioned from a .edu to .com. So no one knew what it was. And one of the things I learned quickly is how I operated and ran the business then. Fast forward every year, the exponential growth and change, you constantly have to learn. And I think the organizations that are great are the ones that are constantly adapting, growing, and asking the 5 whys, which is, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? And really getting to the bottom of, why do we do things the way that we do them? And constantly, looking at things differently. I think you can't sit on your laurels anymore. 50 years ago, things moved at a much slower pace than they do now. So you have to have a constant critical look at how you're doing things. And critical isn't negative. It's just being very honest about what's happening. And so I think that's the most important thing is you've got to get people in the right place. You have to meet them where they are. Sometimes you have to leave them there. They don't need to be in the organization. I'll say that again. Everyone can't. The people that help you get to a certain level may not be the ones that help you get to the next level you want to be in. And then just going back to being clear about your goals and objectives and having them. I think it's really important for organizations to say, I want to be a $25 million business. And right now we're a $10 million business, and this is what we need to do to get there. And this is how we're going to get there. And these are the type of people we need to get us there. And I think those conversations are critical.
Absolutely. All right. Last question. Final question. What's something that a sales leader or a business leader or business owner that might be watching this either right now or later, what do they need to know that we might not have already touched on in order for them to establish a really good culture of sales growth?
I think one thing we haven't talked about is ego and knowing yourself. I think that there are some sales leaders who it's incredibly important for them to be the hero and not the mentor or coach. And I think that if you are in that role today of having to be the one that wins, and even if you're in a situation where you have to sell and manage, which is a really difficult position to be in when you're managing salespeople, I think you have to know yourself. And I think you have to be honest with yourself about where you are and where you're going. And I think ego sometimes really gets in the way of successful management, because managing someone successfully, I don't think has anything to do with the manager. I think it has all to do with your ability to transfer knowledge and support to the people who report to you. I think we've talked about the cornerstones, which I just want to hit on again, because I think they're important. Clarity, making sure that your staff is trained up and trained well. Making sure that you have mentors and that you're mentoring your team. And then finally, the most important thing in sales is you've got to compensate people correctly. And you have to make sure the comp plan works with how your model and growth looks like, what your model and growth looks like.
I think that's it. All right. I think those are the big things. Hey, Elissa, thank you so much for being on the show.
I had so much fun. It was so great to see you again. And
it's so great to see you too. All right, let's do some of the right goodbyes. So thank you to our guest. We really appreciate you coming on and sharing your expertise with us. If you want to get a hold of Elissa, we have her LinkedIn. You can connect with her, but don't try pitching her. Just connect with her
first, then pitch me.
Say hello. That's right. Connect. Say hello. Say I saw you on the show. Then hard sell with the pitch right after that. Exactly. So thank you for that. And then, of course, if anyone ever needs to get a hold of me, you can reach me on my LinkedIn, or you can hit me up on Twitter. I'm happy to connect with anyone that has any follow-up questions. Next week on the show is going to be John Matthews from Gray Cat Enterprises. And we're going to talk specifically about targeting a vertical market and how that can help improve sales performance. And John is fantastic. I'm looking forward to that conversation. Don't forget our YouTube channel. Please like, subscribe, share. We really appreciate it. Have a great day, and we'll see you next week.